Hello there. Welcome to Noon Prayer Watch. It's Friday. The weekend is here. Shabbat Shalom. Hope you all had a good week. This is Jacob coming to you from Japan. Thank you for tuning in or catching up on the replay. Thank you for engaging with our content, standing with us, praying with us, listening to us, conversing with us, fellowshipping with us. All of the things that you do with us, we very much appreciate it. This is Noon Prayer Watch. We are here on the wall watching, praying, discussing what is happening in our communities, cities, nations, and planet. It is October 31st on the normal calendar that we use. Last day of October, heading into November, heading into the holiday season. Thanksgiving, Christmas is right around the corner. Getting cold up here in the northern hemisphere. If you're in the north, please stay warm, I don't want to say medicated, keep up with your vitamins, stay warm, dress well, boost your immune system, and of course cover yourself with prayer. There's lots of bugs going on or going around here and there, both I've heard in America as well as here in Japan. I've been fighting some of that this week, but I'm getting a lot better by the grace of God. Always, of course, cover yourself in prayer. That's the best solution to that. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, stay cool. I believe it's getting warmer down there. So today's topic is, if you haven't seen the thumbnail yet, Trump and Takaichi. And you can look at the picture and see what I'm talking about. And here in Japan, we have a new prime minister. Our first, I'm not Japanese, but I live here, been here for a while. Japan's first female prime minister. And that's a big deal, of course, especially in a nation like Japan that is very male-dominated, male-oriented. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what's going to change, what's going to happen here from here on out, especially when it comes to the relationship between America and Japan and other nations here in the East, what to look out for, what to expect, and of course, what to pray for. President Trump from America, of course, he has come here to East Asia. He first went to Malaysia, went to a meeting down there with lots of different nations. He came here to Japan, where I live, and then went to Korea, met the leader of Korea and also the leader of China, President Xi of China. And he might be done with that and have gone back. But I'm here today to talk about some of the things that happened, especially with the relationship between America and Japan, because there's been some shifts and there's been some changes, and I think it's really important for those of us in the kingdom to be aware of these changes. So we have this really, I think, an iconic picture right here. If you're watching a screen, it's black and white, but this is what I'm going to use for the thumbnail later. We have President Trump and then Takaichi. If you see her name, how do you pronounce it? Her first name is Sanae, S-A-N-A-E, Sanae, and then last name is Takaichi. So you might hear a lot of people pronounce that a lot of different ways. I know foreign language names can be difficult. I struggled as well to learn how to pronounce them. But they hit it off very well. The news keeps saying she handled Trump like he's an animal or something. But I think, and I've talked about this a long time ago, a lot of times as well, Asia and most other nations outside of America and Europe, they're not, how do we say, things are different when it comes to honor, when it comes to respect, when it comes to the platitudes. And President Trump, being from the business world, he understands that better than politicians do. Politicians understand the protocol and other things, but when it comes to really showing respect for power, for authority, we Americans, we kind of don't appreciate authority anymore. We don't appreciate honor, especially, anymore. We've kind of lost that value in our society, but it's still very big here. And so when President Trump comes here, I feel like he has more favor than other presidents have in the past, because other presidents, in the past, they're playing the modern political game. They'll say the right things or whatever, but what actually gets done? Do good relationships are they actually created? And so I think because of the uniqueness of President Trump, as well as Prime Minister Takaichi, who is a female, and communicates and acts differently than men do, especially like we've here in Japan. All of our prime ministers are just, I mean, Takaichi, Prime Minister Takaichi has also been around for a while, but these guys, they're 70s, they've been around forever. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between them because they all do and say sort of the same things. Of course, they have their own personalities and things like that, but from an outsider especially, we don't really see much of a difference, especially when it comes to policy. There's not huge shifts in policy. And with Takaichi, Prime Minister Takaichi, we'll see. I don't know if there will be. People always talk about shifting the way things are done, but we will actually see. And I want to get into what those changes might actually be in the future. But I think if you watch some of the videos, which I will play for you, if you are watching on the screen, you want to listen to me as well as watch some B-roll of the news. I have a Japanese news program here in the back, and we'll just turn that on and play it, and you can see what they're doing if you haven't seen it in the news. They did quite a few things together. One big thing to understand about this situation is a couple of prime ministers ago, here in Japan, we had a guy named Shinzo Abe. Shinzo Abe was the prime minister during Trump's first administration, and he hit off with him very well. Trump loved him, I should say. If you missed the news a couple of years ago, was it 3 years ago now? Prime Minister Abe, he was a foreign prime minister at the time. He had stepped down, and he was just a normal politician. He was assassinated, actually about an hour away from me, about southeast-ish of me. He was assassinated. He was out in the street campaigning, and a guy built a homemade shotgun with 2 shots only and, got close to Prime Minister Abe and shot him. He died from his wounds, in the hospital. Now, Takaichi, who is the prime minister now, she is a quote-unquote disciple of Abe. So when President Trump heard that she was going to be the prime minister, he was very excited, because when it comes to cooperating and doing what he wants Japan to do for his political aims, he was very, I think, positive about that actually happening, whereas some of our other prime ministers here are a little bit more sheepish about it. Okay, so you have to understand about Japan, we have of like any other country many parties, but we basically here only have one party rule, the Liberal Democratic Party. And if you're an American and you hear Liberal Democrats, that doesn't sound good. That sounds like far left, da-da-da-da-da. No, Liberal Democrats and in Japan and the rest of the world use the traditional definition of what liberal means, which does not mean progressive, communist, socialist, far left policies. It means classical liberalism. Well, you limit the government, give more power to the people. Go back to French political history, you can learn about that there. And so they still use the old name for that here in Japan. And so even though we say Liberal Democrats, it's the center, I'm not going to say far right, it's the center right party. And it's it's not the only conservative party, but it's the only major conservative party, when we're talking about the modern terms, political terms, with conservative and liberal, like in America. Words change meanings over time. So I'm not going to get into a bunch of political science stuff. That's kind of boring. I'm not going to get into that. But the point is, the LDP, as I will call it, they basically are in charge. They win every election, and they rarely lose. They have lost a couple of times. And the problem is, the other parties, when they take power, they are not able to run a consistently successful government. Like every year, they're going to change their prime minister. If you know how the parliamentary government system works, like England, like Israel, like Australia. And so at any time, you can you can pressure the prime minister to step down, and they will have a new internal election within the party. They will have, of course, other elections for ministers of the parliament, or they call it the diet here in Japan. and that determines, how much power each party has in the parliament. So, but the LDP is basically ruling Japan, and it has been for a very long time, for most of the history since World War II. And that's because we talk about this before. In Asia, people are not used to diversity in authority. Usually you have a king, you have an emperor, and they are always in charge. You don't really expect that to change, whether they're good, whether they're bad. It's like, it is who it is. So that's why when we go to the Middle East, like Iraq, places like Iraq, Syria, and all these other places, sometimes creating a democratic system that we have in the West is a little bit different. Egypt as well. We've had seen some difficulties there. You don't have to have, but those societies function best. I'm talking about like, it's not great, like a great place to live. I'm just talking about the society works. It doesn't go into complete chaos like Somalia or somewhere. When there's a strong authoritative figure, and usually an autocrat, when they are in charge of the nation, things usually run smoothly. Those leaders might be very corrupt and evil, and they might do lots of bad things, but the nation, doesn't go into complete chaos. Iraq under Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein was a very bad guy. He killed millions of people throughout all of the wars that he started and was involved with, which a lot of people don't really know about, like the Iran-Iraq War. But Iraq itself was fairly stable. And when America and other coalition forces went in and kicked him out, we had ISIS come up. We had all of these other internal insurgencies pop up everywhere. It was complete chaos because you didn't have one person ruling everything. And Japan isn't so violent, but they have been ruled by a ruling class. They have been ruled by an emperor for a very long time. And so people care more about stability and a functioning society than the policies that you specifically believe in and want to see enacted. And so the question is, do I agree with, when there's an election, do I agree with this party or do I agree with that party? Do I agree with this politician or that politician? The question I hear people here say is, can this person actually do the job? Which is I wish Americans would ask that question sometimes about some of our politicians. A lot of the people we elect might not ever get elected. But that being said, when especially a woman comes to power, people ask, can she actually rule? I hear women asking that very question. I think the women are more strict on her than the men are. They're like, she's a woman, I don't know if she can do that. I know that's very controversial, but women in Japan are not, they don't have the same perspective on things as in the West. I know that's very controversial, but that's just the reality of the situation. So when it comes to electing someone like that, you might not have the female vote necessarily, so to speak. So anyway, enough about that. The big thing here is the last Prime Minister, Takaichi, Prime Minister Takaichi, she almost got elected. And when I say elected, it's an internal party with, just the party in the capital city. People aren't actually electing. That's not how parliamentary governments work. She got really close, but did not win. So because the party rules all the time, every single time, the diversity in the politics here come with the factions within the party. So there's, it's the center-right party, but some of them are more right-leaning, some are more left-leaning. And so the left-leaning factions have been winning lately. They've been getting their guys into the prime minister spot. They lost. They've had a couple of guys in since Abe stepped down. And Takaichi almost got in last time, but she lost the very last minute. This time she won, because there really wasn't anybody opposing her except this other guy. Not going to get into that. So because she has got in, people are expecting Japan to shift to a more right-wing position on a lot of issues, specifically the issues of immigration. Just like a lot of other rich nations in the world, we have lots of immigration right now, and some people are not. If you think about the Make America Great Again movement in America, there's similar sentiment movements in Japan as well, who think we should kick out all of the foreigners, stop all of immigration. And why that's complicated, not going to get into that right now, but people think that that's going to happen now that she is elected. Will it happen? I don't know. I don't think it will. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I just think they might enforce more of the rules on the books. They'll tighten regulations at the worst. But some people think, people like me, we're going to get all kicked out. We have a lot of people freaking out. And so what is really important is, so the LDP, this is the spiritual aspect of things. The LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party that has been ruling for forever, in order to maintain their position in power, you have to make coalitions with other parties. And there has been another party called the Komeito Party. And they're small, but they have enough numbers to make the LDP maintain their power. And they've been in coalition with them for many, many years. I don't even know how many years, but for a very long time, maybe decades, probably decades. And they don't have the exact same positions, but they, when you make a coalition, you don't get everything you want. You get some of what you want, what you agree, what the other parties do. But the problem is this party is connected to a Buddhist cult and called Soka Gakkai. And they're not officially, they used to be officially connected, but they, said you can't do that, but they're still connected. And so spiritually, that's a big problem. And when I say cult, what does that mean? I'm talking like you have Buddhism. Oh, think about Christianity. You have Christianity, and then you have Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses and all these other fringe cults that aren't necessarily part of mainstream Christianity. Same thing with Buddhism. You have this kind of separate group started by this guy who's pretty much, calls himself a god. I don't know if he's alive or not. People haven't seen him for many years, but he's apparently still alive. We'll see in the future if that's true. I haven't been keeping up with them lately, but they have a lot of power and a lot of influence in Japan and other places as well. They have a lot of money. They have so many buildings and very expensive areas. A couple months ago, I was driving in the mountains. We took a short vacation with some friends of ours, and we were way, way, way up in the mountains, hours and hours and hours up in the mountains. And we were driving, and there was this big, beautiful property. It looked like a golf course, but it wasn't a golf course. And I was like, I bet I could feel spiritually like something's off with this territory. And we kept driving, and I was like, I bet you it's like some campground for something like this cult. And sure enough, after 2 or 3 minutes, we drove by a sign, and it was their property. And I was like, wow, I called it. So they have a lot of money, they have a lot of influence. And here is the crazy thing that happened. They are fed up with the ruling party because they're a little bit more leftist than where the party was. And so because Takaichi came in, she's more right-leaning, they broke their coalition, their agreement with the ruling party. They are now in the opposition. And spiritually, I believe that's very good and that's very important. And so when that happened, though, it looked like Takaichi could not win. Didn't have enough votes, didn't have enough seats in the parliament to get the prime minister spot. And so it looked like all the opposition parties were going to make a government, and they would have the numbers to get the prime minister spot. But all of those talks, because of infighting, they all fell apart. That always happens with them. They can't ever agree on anything. That's why they never win. That's an important lesson to learn. And so another opposition party, which is actually the Osaka party, it's like where I live in this, I live in the second biggest metropolitan area in Japan. And we kind of have here, we have a more libertarian, it's a centrist party. It's on financial issues, it's right wing. On social issues, it's left wing. But they want limited government. They would be a more like libertarian kind of conservative party. And so they've been opposing the main government for a long time, but they suddenly switched gears and they have made a government with Takaichi and the ruling, the LDP party. And so now we have not just a new coalition, which doesn't have the Buddhist cult involved anymore, but we have Osaka, where I live, and also Takaichi is from this area as well. We have authority coming from this area, whereas other areas of the nation, that's usually where the authority comes from. That's usually where the leaders come from. And now we have the authority is streaming from this area, which I think is important. Personally, that's just what I feel. So that's a big shift. We're going to see if that actually turns into policy shifts in the future. But spiritually, it's very good, in my opinion, a very good step. Religion has had a perverse relationship with the government in this nation, and God's shaking that up and shaking that out. Now, hopefully he continues to shake it all the way to its core, to get all this bad religion, so to speak, out of the government, get people away from it. And it's important because it is why a couple of years ago, Prime Minister Abe was assassinated. I mentioned that earlier. The guy made a shotgun, killed him on the street. The reason he did it, it's a really weird situation because everybody loved Abe, very sad to see him assassinated, very angry at this guy for killing him. But when it came out for the reasons why he shot him, people could sympathize with it. And it's like, so this is what happened. So there's a church called the Unification Church. It's supposed to be a Christian denomination. It's from Korea, but they do a lot of weird stuff. But they're really good, just like this Buddhist cult and other cults. They're really good at squeezing their people for money. And so if you're in this religion, you're required to give lots and lots of money, lots of offerings, lots of donations to the organization. And this guy that killed Abe grew up in one of those families. And so his mom was always giving money to this cult from Korea. And they were poor their entire lives. And so he grew up poor, very angry at this group. And because they have a relationship with the ruling party here, and what I mean by that is when it comes to getting people out to vote and doing all of these political things, the Unification Church supports the government and sends their people out to work. No questions asked. And because of that, there's sketchy money stuff going on behind the scenes. And so anyway, the guy assassinated Abe because of that, because he grew up poor. He was very angry at this cult, very angry at the ruling party for being in bed with them. And so he killed Abe because of this. And what's crazy is people are sad that this happened. People are angry at this guy for doing it, but they're also angry at the reason, the situation, this perverse relationship between false religion and government. And so because of that, the Unification Church has been completely it's still here maybe, but it's been nullified. A lot of their perks that they have as a religious organization has been taken away, as well as regulations have been proposed. I don't know if they've been enacted yet, but on cult-like behavior from religious organizations, which I think is a very good thing. The problem is, will they be strict on all religions, even legitimate ministries like Christian ministries as well? We got to pray that those things are not affected, because they could be. If you teach or speak certain things, you might get in trouble, especially when it comes to children, because a lot of people view these religions as mentally abusing children by telling them all these things. If you don't give money to this guy, then you're going to go to hell, that sort of stuff. You can't say those things anymore, which, something like that's good. You shouldn't say it. But there are other things that some people don't like that are in the Bible, that are scriptural, that we should be able to say, that we need to say. And if there's regulations against those things, that's not good. So Trump and Takaichi, they met. A couple of the things, I have an article here. A couple of things that they agreed on. They are reinforcing Japan and America's defense capabilities. Trump has wanted Japan to participate more in the defense of... Oh, the video stopped playing. There it goes. The defense of the region. And basically they are calling this new U.S.-Japan security alliance a new golden age. And so far it's just been words. We'll see if what actually happens down the road, but I think this is a very good thing. Takaichi said peace cannot be preserved by words alone. and Japan is ready to contribute even more proactively to peace and stability in the region. The problem with that is China and Korea get nervous when Japan says things like that because they think World War II is going to happen again. And that's just political posturing. They use to scare their people to keep their own power. But that's what happens. That makes some instability in the region. But most people in Japan, Japanese people, they want to be strong, but they also want to be peaceful. And so Japan is, right now, America kind of runs the show, but Japan is willing to participate more here. A couple of other things that have happened. I kind of said a lot of all this stuff. An agreement with America and Japan to cooperate on rare earth minerals, which we use for making chips and technology and things like that. A lot of the rare earth raw material comes from China, and having a dependency on China is bad because they can threaten to cut it off, and then you can't make cars and computers and things like that anymore. And so Japan and America have agreed to cooperate more in this area. Japan is also increasing capabilities of like creating semiconductors, which a lot of you out there, especially in America, this should be very relevant to you because a couple of years ago, I don't know if it's still going on now, because because of the coronavirus, there was a semiconductor shortage, and that led to the reduction in producing electronics, but especially cars, because cars have lots of computers and stuff inside of them. And that led to cars becoming more expensive, even used cars. And so I heard from America, a lot of people were very frustrated they couldn't get cars for a good price because of this semiconductor shortage. And I can explain more about why that semiconductor shortage happened. But the point is now America and Japan are working together to create a better, more flexible, more protected supply chain. So things like that aren't going to happen so much in the future. Takaichi also praised Trump for his efforts to achieve peace in Gaza. And there was a war happening, or a battle or whatever, between Thailand and Cambodia, and Trump put an end to that. It has been said that Takaichi will nominate President Trump for the Nobel Peace Prize. Some people said he should have won it this year, but a lot of people have missed the point that the cutoff date for nominations passed before a lot of the Gaza stuff resolved. So next year it could be possible, especially if everything holds and stays peaceful up until that point. So earlier this year, Trump imposed tariffs on Japan to about 25%, but he cut that down to 15% in return for investment in the U.S. Japan has agreed to increase their defense spending by 2% of their GDP, which Trump was very happy to hear about. And the article just goes on they're just praising each other. Yes, so Trump, Japan gave a list of projects to President Trump and said that they would invest $550 billion in America. So that's good for the American economy. That's going to make lots of jobs, lots of products. And that's pretty much all I'm going to talk about. We have projects involving companies like SoftBank. SoftBank is a cell phone company here. They bought out T-Mobile in America, and so they're going to increase spending in America. Westinghouse, General Electric, Panasonic. They're going to build nuclear reactors, copper smelting, refining facilities, up to $100 billion. So we have some interesting agreements being made that will hopefully lead to prosperity of both nations. Japan and USA, two very different countries, two very different cultures, but because they're so different, that's why they get along. It's like a marriage in a way. Like you have a man and a woman who have different personalities, but opposites attract. And that's kind of the situation between America and Japan sometimes. That's something I experience all the time. You're so different that you have grace for the other person because you know how different they are and how they think differently and act differently and have different values and different habits and things like that, both on a personal level as well as a national level. And so I think that the relationship between the two nations has been strengthened. There's going to be prosperity to come from it. So we need to pray that that continues, that the enemy doesn't come in, both literal and spiritual enemies come in and try to break and attack that relationship, because it's happening all the time. China would love it for Japan to break their relationship with Japan and get in bed with them, so to speak. They would absolutely love that. Russia would as well, but that's not the case right now. Japan and America are strong, and we need to pray that that continues, that the status quo continues. Pray that this relationship becomes strong, and because when it comes to advancing the kingdom, when it comes to spreading the gospel, it's going to be a lot easier to do that when there's strong relationships between America, between the West and Japan. And as Japan becomes stronger, increases their relationships with other nations in East Asia, it makes it easier for us to come and go from Japan to these nations. That's kind of the perspective of this ministry here and specifically. And so America having strong relationships with all of the East Asian nations, Indo-Pacific nations, when it comes to, we're talking about this future revival we keep talking about, we keep expecting and praying for, I think that that's really important. America has its own issues, but we still pray for America. Obviously, we love America. Most of us are Americans, and we pray for the prosperity and the success of America. Obviously, the destiny of other nations comes into play, and sometimes other nations become more prominent and important in certain eras and all of that. But we still pray for the success and prosperity of the nation we're coming for. And if there's judgment, then that's up to God. But until then, we're going to pray. And right now, things are looking good, I believe. So we pray for all of these things. We also pray that Japan will take a correct stance towards Israel. Never had a bad stance like a lot of European nations do, but they're kind of a neutral. They don't really, they have the neutral stance. They don't really understand the difference between Jewish people, all these, Jewish people, Palestinian, Arabs, Persians. They're a bunch of people far away that are always fighting. We just want peace. That's their kind of perspective. But when it comes to spiritual blessing and prosperity, blessing Israel is very important. And so we need to pray that Takaichi and her government will warm up more towards Israel. And that's all I got to say about that. Thank you so much for watching. Pray for Japan, pray for America, pray for the nations. That's all I have to share. Hopefully that informed you about what is going on. There's so much more to share about, but that's the gist of it, and about the 30 minutes that I've shared with you. Hopefully that informed you what's going on, how things are looking, and of course what to pray for. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting us. If you watched until the end, please like, share, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell. It's a small way you can help support this ministry. Also, you can download the CCS app in the App Store or the Android Store, whatever platform you're on. You can donate to us financially there. Always appreciate it, even if it's a little bit. Be blessed. Have a great weekend. Always remember to bring order to chaos. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.